Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO.
Hey, we appreciate you making Missoula Real Estate Today a part of your weekend. And my guests today, got two of them. Got Dusky Graham, branch manager with Fidelity National Title. Dusky, welcome to you.
Hi, thank you. Glad
And
to be here.
Katrina Ryan, title manager with Fidelity National Title. Hi, Katrina. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, thanks.
Well, first to get acquainted with stuff there, gals. Tell us about Fidelity National Title, what services you provide, and what is its footprint in Missoula and elsewhere?
So as far as footprint goes, the local office, we have direct operations in Missoula, Ravalli County. We have one in Flathead County, Cascade County, and Yellowstone County.
All right. A rather large footprint.
Yes.
Well, Katrina, since you're on the mic as title manager, I'll ask you first your position, what the job entails.
Sure. So I examine, primarily examine, and then I'm responsible for ensuring the production and the accuracy and quality of the work product that goes out for the insurance policies.
All right. How about you, Dusky, as branch manager?
Branch manager, I oversee the office, troubleshoot items. I also run a full-time closing desk, so I handle escrows full-time, have a group of assistants that are helping with that. But setting the culture, just making sure that everyone's staying on task and, dealing with those everyday things that come up. So
Yeah. Well, okay, we got the get acquainted. Let's get to the meat and potatoes now that we've got all that taken care of. Since we are on a real estate show hosted by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, what's your relationship with the Diane Beck team at Windermere and I guess, realtors in general?
With Diane and her office and realtors, we consider ourselves a business partner. Mm-hmm. Their success is our success by getting the transactions closed for their clients, and then in such a way that they build that repeat clientele. So hopefully, if the agents are getting repeat clients, the agents are remembering us, that we helped them get to that point, and will repeat the business with us also.
Where does a title company fit into the mix of the whole buying or selling of a home transaction process?
We handle, first of all, when they go under contract, they'll ask us to do the title search, and that's Katrina's department there. Then once the title report's done, everyone gets the report. They have the opportunity to look at what the property is involved as far as covenants, easements, things like that. And then escrow jumps in, gets the transaction to closing. So we handle the property transaction, exchange of funds, documents. We handle the loan documents, property taxes being paid, just getting the deal closed in accordance with their buy-sell agreement. So,
title research, Katrina, that must be fascinating. Do you come across some rather unique, unusual, interesting things while you're doing that?
Always. It's always interesting. That's the thing that I love about it. It's you're doing history research all the time, and no files are really ever the same. The parties are different, the property is different, the transaction is different. So it's always something new and interesting.
Right. Yeah, interesting and fun at times, I'm sure. But you are doing it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason you are doing that for the benefit of your client, right?
Right. We look to see if there's the restrictions on a client's ability to use the property, and then we're making sure that everything is cleared up before it's transferred to the next owner. So,
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. My guests, Dusky Graham, branch manager, and Katrina Ryan, title manager, both with Fidelity National Title. What is involved in a title search? Why is it important, and or what are some of the things that it actually might reveal?
So basically a title examiner takes the information from the transaction off the buy-sell, the parties involved and the property, and we search those items in the county record. So we're looking for covenants and agreements and easements and errors in legal descriptions, anything that might restrict their use. And then also we're looking for, judgments, court cases, that kind of thing. Sometimes we'll see bankruptcy show up. Sometimes someone will be deceased and there's probate that we have to deal with. So we look for those things and then reflect that on the commitment. And then that's where then escrow takes over, and then they clear all those items up that need to be cleared up.
Another important part on the title search, too, I think, is watching the documents, making sure that signatures are proper, notaries are proper. We're watching for fraud in the chain of title, because that's part of what we're charged with doing, too, is making sure that everything was done properly. And if there's a question, we can raise that question and deal with the question before we go forward with the closing.
I'm going to ask you more questions about this a bit later on in the show, but fraud becoming that's much more of a prevalent thing these days, isn't it?
It is. It's scary, but it's real.
Yeah. What are some common pitfalls, if there are such a thing as common? What red flags might you need to watch out for in a title transaction?
Well, just on the research side of it, we're always looking for, one of the things that we ensure is access, that there's legal access to property. So if it's in town, we're pretty safe, because plats and subdivisions, like, it's all platted and dedicated to the public, those streets typically. But when we get out into the rural areas, making sure that there are granted easements that get you from a public road all the way to that property, and then making sure that those easements are sufficient legally. Yeah. So that's a big thing, that red flag that we're looking at. We also are looking for, like Dusky mentioned, the signatures and verifying signatures verifying that they're consistent. Like it doesn't look like someone's trying to commit fraud.
Right.
Divorce is another thing that we're looking out for, and making sure that everything is taken care of through that way.
That would be a nasty find, wouldn't it? Oh, gee, I don't have access to the house I'm building because I don't have a road.
Right. Yeah, it would be. It absolutely would be.
Yeah. And it's probably happened. Right? Yeah. How do you help protect property rights in a transaction?
I think the main way that we help protect people's property rights is by our process of doing the research and showing them exactly what affects this particular property, this parcel, letting them know. And then if they have plans, how they're going to plan to use the property moving forward, that, they know exactly what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
I think, and then just making sure that all the documents are executed properly, that no one can come back and question the validity of those documents. I think that's primarily how we help protect.
Well, my sense is that sounds fairly complex. Property rights. Is that accurate that it's complex? If so, what are some of the reasons why it is?
Oh, it absolutely is complex. I mean, we're looking at city ordinances, county, regulations, state rules and statutes, federal mandates. I mean, all of that comes into play, plus industry standards. Like all that, we have to either be experts in it or have a working knowledge of how that affects the transaction. So yeah, it absolutely can be complex.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Dusky Graham, branch manager, and Katrina Ryan, title manager with Fidelity National Title here in Missoula. Now, you provide evidence of title and ensure real property ownership. Is that something that can be mishandled unless you have a solid professional on your team, which I'm assuming you do?
Yeah, it absolutely can be mishandled, and we see that every day when we're doing exams. I mean, whether it's a legal description or a deed not prepared properly, or there could be a transaction that was mishandled previously and they didn't pay something off. We see all of that all the time. So, as far as industry requirements, in order to be a title producer, we have to be licensed through the state. So, we're taking classes all the time and just keeping up to date with the latest in our industry.
What happens if you find some serious flaws or errors or maybe something that's maybe crosses the line of being legal or not. What's the next step for you? Do you contact the prospective buyer or the realtor, or where do you have to go with the bad news?
Usually at that point, once the title report is done, they are going to give the clients, the agents, a heads up on might be an issue. We're going to call it out in the report, make a note that there's an issue. Escrow kind of gets involved at that point. I'm going to be also making that call and talking to them, finding out, what are the best ways we can work through this. Whether they need to get an attorney involved possibly to work through some of that. We can't prepare a lot of documents that may fix title issues, but a lot of times it's conversations, additional information is needed. Sometimes things are out there, they're just not recorded properly. It can be any number of things. We try to work through that. We don't just say, here's a problem, go fix it. My goal is to always work with our clients to get them to where they need to be, and whether it's working with them or a representative, an attorney, someone else that might offer assistance, kind of head that direction.
Okay, all right. You provide commercial and residential services. Is there a lot of difference between the way the two are handled?
Not really. I mean, commercial and residential, they are different animals, but how we approach them, we follow instructions given to us by the clients, usually through the buy-sell agreement, or if you have a lender involved, the financing is going to have some direction on it too. They are different, but very similar in more ways than you think. The parties can be slightly different. You might be working with business people rather than a seller and buyer who might do this once or twice in their life. Usually in a commercial deal, you're working with people that have done this numerous times.
Yeah.
So there's differences there. But for the most part, what I find is the difference is communication. Whether it's residential or commercial, communication with us is imperative.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. My guests, Dusky Graham, branch manager, and Katrina Ryan, title manager with Fidelity National Title. How does title insurance protect my investment should a claim arise? And maybe you can give an example of that.
Well, I mean, should a claim arise, I mean, you identify the issue. And if you at that point, you submit it to the insurer, which would be Fidelity National Title, right? The local office doesn't handle that. It goes off to our claims department, and then they look at the information provided and do some digging, and then also look and see if what's being claimed is a covered item on the policy. And if it is, then they move to either try to fix the problem or they pay out policy limits. So depending upon the loss. So I mean, that's kind of it's like any other insurance policy, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's dig a little bit deeper, go over some of the services offered at Fidelity National Title and a little bit about what is involved with each. Let's go ahead and start with escrow. What does the term mean, and what services do you provide there?
So escrow is defined as a neutral third party. Basically, we're going to take instruction from the parties in the transaction. I'm not going to represent either side, but rely on the instructions they're giving me. So if they need things done a certain way, we collect the documents, we collect the funds, we make sure all the instructions and terms are met, and then we actually proceed to putting the documents of public record, which is when the closing actually occurs, is when we record. During that course of the escrow, we're in communication with the clients as we progress through the steps from the beginning to the end, letting everybody know when things are done, when things are expected to be done, what the next step is going to be. So just, again, communication for escrow side is important.
Yeah, I'm sure it's case by case, but can that be a rather lengthy process? I know you hope it doesn't become long, but can it be?
Yeah, the term of escrow or length of it can be very short. Someone can come and go into escrow, and we get the title report done, and we can close in a week if the parties are ready. Other times, they may have closing dates, usually 30 to 45 days out if financing is involved. And also, people need to prepare for moving, getting into their next home. I mean, there's so many factors in that, but it can be whatever the parties need.
Title insurance, how does that differ from, say, homeowners or business insurance?
I kind of think the biggest difference there is whether or not, but that there's a single payment. Is there single insurance premium? It's just one-time payment at the time of closing at that transaction. as opposed to like a annual or monthly premium that the other insurance policies require. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest difference that I can think of.
Yeah.
The other part is title insurance typically insures the history of a home, where usually casualty insurance, your auto and homeowners, is preventing a loss going forward, what might happen in the future. We're kind of ensuring the history of the home, that everything was done.
I'm glad you brought that term up, history, because I imagine the older the dwelling, there might be a lot more things involved, right?
Right.
A lot more conveyances if there's an older property. Yeah, absolutely.
1031 exchanges. I wanted to ask you about that. Maybe save us a little tax money. I don't know.
Yes, definitely. We are definitely still seeing 1031 exchanges. I know there have been changes in the tax laws. We do have an exchange company, IPX. Russell Marsan has been here in Missoula several times talking about the different ways to handle exchanges from basic 101 up to very complex transactions. But we do have a company that handles that, and they are easily handled through the transaction. Russell makes it very, very easy.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. We come your way every weekend, 8 a.m. on Saturdays and as well as 10:30 a.m. on Sundays. And my thanks to not only Diane, but her marketing partners that help bring you the show every week. Miles Link at Opportunity Bank of Montana and Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage. And back with Dusky Graham, branch manager, and Katrina Ryan, title manager with Fidelity National Title here in Missoula. Okay, gals, with high dollar transactions comes the risk of cyber crimes. We touched on this just a little bit earlier in the show. Is how prevalent is that in your industry?
Unfortunately, it is a growing part of our industry, not the part we want growing, unfortunately. But the fraudsters out there are getting very good at what they're doing. They're sitting back, they're watching. They know right when to swoop into transactions. What they are targeting is financial, so they're looking. It used to be primarily maybe just the seller funds in a transaction, but now you see them targeting buyer funds, targeting loan funds coming into a file, as well as the payoffs and any disbursements coming out of the file. So, and no amount is too small for them. They will go after commissions. They will go after insurance payments. They're not just going for the high dollar. I mean, money is money to them. Doesn't matter how much it is. So we have to really work really hard to protect us and our clients foremost against that. So we educate our clients at the open of escrow about what we will and won't be asking from them via emails. We also have a secure site called In Here that we direct our clients to so they can communicate with us, provide us with some of the non-public personal information that we need from them to get the transaction closed. So we're working really hard and we take it seriously. It's gotten to where we can't even trust faxes that come into our office anymore because the fraudsters know when to and how to falsify things. So we're very careful comparing. If we get something new that we didn't order, we look at it very carefully. Knock on wood, we haven't had anything in our office come across. We've had some close calls, I think, some things that we probably prevented, but at the same time, we're always vigilant on that front.
We run a fair amount of national commercials on this radio station. Some of them for I think there's one called Home Title Lock. I want to say, let's say the thieves are able to forge a signature, and it appears that they own the home. So you go with a company like this Home Title Lock or whatever it's called. I'm probably getting that wrong, but you probably know what I'm talking about. Is that something that you endorse or recommend, or is that something that's pretty much covered with your services? I don't know much about them. I just hear a lot of ads about them, you know?
The only thing I've heard is some people after closing called me and said, hey, I got this in the mail. What is this? And I think I've said, well, I don't know what you're looking at, so forward it to me. It appears it's a service that, to me, what I saw was that they were just monitoring what the public record is. They're not offering solutions if there's an issue, just alerting you to that. But I don't know a whole lot about them, but I don't know that they're worth the money that we paid for.
Right.
But not having a lot of information from me, it's kind of hard to tell.
Sure. What are some examples, gals, of how a scheme might work if there weren't watchdog precautions in place.
As I mentioned, the fraudsters know right when to swoop in. So
Yeah.
they are really good at getting into someone's email that may not be protected. Could be the buyer, could be the seller, could be the agent, an attorney, someone involved in the transaction. They're watching. They know, they start seeing communication about a wire being sent, and they get in, and they're very good at hiding themselves in the transaction now and appearing by making minute changes to an email address so you don't really realize what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they get in, they insert themselves, they then start saying, hey, we need the money now, here's your change, here's the change of the wire instructions. All kinds of things like that. So, and just they make it sound urgent. So we, again, let our clients know up front, we're not going to email you about changes. We're not going to email you about wiring. Our wire instructions are never going to change from day one in the transaction. They also can falsify payoff statements if they see that this borrower or buyer has a loan out there and we're going to be paying it off. They go out and they look for a statement that looks relatively like what that lender would provide, and they falsify it and send it to us. They may use the same one and then just change the wire instructions so that when I, as a title company, go to close the transaction and send out a payoff, I'm not sending it to the proper bank. It's going to someone else. So again, we have a database. We know what everyone's wire instructions look like. If we get something that looks different, we're making some phone calls and checking. We're verifying everything.
So is that mainly how title insurance can help reduce the risk of fraud?
Yeah, I think just having professionals working, from a title insurance standpoint, making sure everything is good on that end. Escrow side of it, having professionals that know what they're looking at, knowing what to ask for, what not to ask for, when to ask for it. It's the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from the title side, we're there's certain red flags, just scenarios that examiners learn, and when we start to see them, you start to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
So it's just that kind of sixth sense, something's going on here, and starting to ask questions. And then as far as the coverage under the policy, there's coverage under the policy for fraud. So, both of those between escrow and title, that's a big coverage.
Have you seen any real doozies lately, Katrina?
I haven't seen any lately, but I do recall one a long time ago where, and it wasn't. I wouldn't say it's. It's fraud technically, but woman and her husband were. I think they were buying property, and turned out that the husband passed like 2 days before, and I happened to see his obituary in the newspaper. And I'm like, that sounds really familiar. Went down. The closing was happening right then. Oh, and she's like, well, I didn't think anything. I thought I still have a power of attorney. Well, so it wasn't anything that was like devious or anything. She just wasn't aware. And stuff like that we pick up on, So yeah, interesting.
An innocent mistake, but a good thing you were there.
Yeah.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. And my guests are Dusky Graham, branch manager, and Katrina Ryan, title manager with Fidelity National Title. It's almost time for you to, get on your soapbox, do the commercial portion of the program here. What service or services do you offer that you feel make you such an integral part of a real estate transaction?
We are the hub of the transaction. So information, we're in the center of the buyer, the seller, their lender, the agents, making sure that we are the point of communication. So if we communicate out to the parties that, the title report is done and let everyone know it's done, they have a certain time frame to review. Escrow gets the report. We start working through making sure that the parties have signed up and are providing the information that we need. As we hit those milestones of title report is done, closing's ready to go, title's cleared, when we get the buyers and sellers scheduled, when their statements are ready to go, when the parties have signed and that we've submitted for funding from the lender. Those are key points of the communication and very important because these transactions only happen usually once or twice in your lifetime possibly.
Sure.
So we're letting them know when things are happening so they can continue on with their lives, whether they're moving in, moving out, relocating. Just that point of communication is important for the clients.
I always ask my guests about success stories, and one or both of you can jump in here if you like. But Any transaction you've been recently involved in that you found especially rewarding?
For me, for escrow side of it, first-time home buyers are usually, those are my favorite because it's first time they're buying, they're going through the process, they can come in and you can tell they're a little nervous, they don't know what to expect. Being able to put them at ease and let them know, hey, this is the end, we're going to get this wrapped up and get this done for you. A lot of times they'll have families with them, especially when they've had kids with them and they're excited. Is this going to be my new bedroom? I mean, they're talking about it. That part for me is really cool. I've had one of the transactions, we had thank you cards out on our desk and the gal drew me a picture of her new house and she gave it to me and she goes, she was probably 10, but I still have that picture to this day because that is what it's all about at the end of the day.
Excellent. Well done. How about you, Katrina?
I love the big commercial transactions, the ones where it's a development that's coming in because, years later I'll still drive, and I've done this for 20 years. I still drive by a project that I worked on. I'm like, oh, I remember that. And just to be able to say is I was part of that. I was part of bringing that to Missoula. That's so rewarding for me. And then, the research projects, I love diving into the research on, just some little that they're trying to answer. I always find that super satisfying. So,
Now, you don't have to say the name, but is there one that you drive by often that you could say identify by name? That no, okay, all right,
yeah.
no, fair enough. That's all right.
There's plenty around town that I was just like, oh yeah, I was part of that.
Okay, all right. Let's see here. What makes Fidelity National Title the right choice? You can both answer that question if you'd like.
I'm going to go with our team because we have a solid group of professionals that want to be in the office every day helping people, and they're proactive, and the communication piece of it is there. Additionally, our backing from our company. I know when we first came in, we're a national company. However, it's local people working. Same management that was there before. We're still making our decisions locally, but we have the backing. So if we need help, we've got someone at our fingertips there to help us with some of the tougher calls. If there's issues that come up, I mean, we've got backing to help with that, and that's huge. And that's important. And I think from the title standpoint, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. What can you add to what Dusky said there, Katrina?
Well, the attitude, everybody is eager to be working in this industry. And we've got, what was it? We figured before we came here, just under 100 years worth of experience in our office. I mean, that's quite a bit of experience. And then as far as our underwriters nationwide, there's not anything that they haven't seen. Yeah. So whenever we have a question, whenever something new shows up, we have that resource guidance right there, so I think that's great. I think that's great for us.
Mm-hmm. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck here on News Talk KGVO. My guests this week have been Dusky Graham, branch manager, and Katrina Ryan with title manager, and you both did a wonderful job. Let's get you all the contact information, website, emails, phone numbers, locations, all of those things before I let you get out of here.
All right. Well, we're located in beautiful downtown Missoula, 320 West Broadway.
Okay.
Our office phone number is 406-728-1500. Emails and everything can be found on our website. Fidelity. Actually, I can't remember our website.
I'll bet you if you did a Google search.
I bet you can Google it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
Yes.
And believe me, you are not the first guest I've had when I've asked that question. They come in, I don't remember what our website is.
I have it saved.
We'll find you. Dusky Graham and Katrina Ryan with Fidelity National Title on this week's Missoula Real Estate Today. Great job, both of you gals. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@windermere.com, or for a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit move2missoula.com. That's move2missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.